Welcome everyone, I'm Dan Jenkins and I'm going to talk to you about the difference between your project succeeding or burning to a crisp is actually you, no one else. What brought this talk on? So the Zoom effect. The pandemic hasn't really changed a thing. It's in terms of our industry and how it's used to connect people. It's just really brought it to the forefront of everyone's mind. And so essentially, you're getting in your own way. The idea here is that we need to make way and make haste. But a bit about me before we get into the talk. So I'm Dan Jenkins, like I said. I'm Chief Ape. I'm founder of a company called Nimble Ape Limited in the UK. We're an RTC consultancy. I organise an event in the UK called CommCon. We did a virtual one earlier this year, and hopefully we'll do another virtual one at the beginning of next year because I don't see things getting anywhere near back to normal anytime soon, even with a vaccine maybe on the horizon. I'm a builder of Lego. I'm a masher-upper of cool stuff, and I'm Dan_Jenkins on Twitter. Dan@nimblea.pe is my email. Usually I'd give you all a business card if you came up to me at the end of a talk. Can't do that anymore, can we? And those are the links to the company website and CommCon. But let's get back to the talk and its clickbaity title. The difference between your project succeeding or burning to a crisp is actually you. So what do I mean by this? So what is the Zoom effect? The Zoom effect is that Zoom is becoming this verb, much like Hoover did. You hoover your floor, you don't vacuum your floor. And ultimately, this is pretty depressing from a RTC standpoint. There are many, many great projects out there and services out there, not just open source projects, that we've all been using for years. And suddenly everyone's talking about Zooming. Even if they're meeting on, like, say, Google Hangouts or Google Meet or Skype, they still call it a Zoom. It's really depressing and we need to try and fix it, but that's another talk. This is going to follow a TED Talk format where there's lots of opinions, not a huge amount on the slides to back it all up, but hopefully at the end of it, you'll go away. Let me just mute this device. You'll go away thoughtful and thinking about the future. So onwards and upwards. Why do we hear about Zoom every single day? I mean, ultimately, we don't really see a lot of Jitsi Meet's interface on the news. I think the only time that I've actually seen Jitsi Meet as a program on the news was as a result of the Belgian government using it to talk to do their cabinet meeting or something along those lines. Ultimately, we see Zoom on the news every single day. We see it on the TV, people use it within our families, and it's just this thing. Everyone knows of Slack, right? But does everyone know about Matrix and Element? If you don't know about Matrix and Element, you should absolutely go to matrix.org and take a look at the Matrix Foundation and the project that they've been building. Element is the company behind it. And it's also the UI, one of the UIs around Matrix. I use it every single day. Everyone's heard of Twilio and Vonage, but very few of us know about something called Jambones. Granted, it's a pretty new project, but it's one by the founder, creator of Dractio, and ultimately it's an open source CPaaS, which is pretty damn exciting. Everyone's heard of Avaya and Cisco, but do people in enterprise actually know about Asterisk and FreeSwitch and Camelio and OpenSips and Dractio and all of the other projects? These projects are still completely and utterly underutilized in enterprises because enterprises either don't know about them, don't care about them, or just like spending lots of money with the people like Avaya and Cisco. I mean, why? Why is this the case? Because ultimately, promoting an open source project doesn't necessarily have to be a real-time communications one, but promoting an open source project is intrinsically difficult. It's especially difficult for real-time communications projects. Ultimately, IT admins and developers like me are inherently lazy. And I mean, ultimately, scrap that. We are all inherently lazy. And so we all want to try before we buy. We want to go, right, let's go and start trying to use this thing, and then we can make a decision fairly quickly. But that ultimately benefits the CPASs. You can go and sign up for a trial on a website to, say, RingCentral or Slack or wherever, and get a trial account without any money up front, usually, and you can try it straight away. And that's because they put all of the work in to make using that service easy, right? You fill in a couple of fields on a form, and you've got an account. You might have a batch of phone numbers or a SIP URI that you can use. It's really difficult to do that for open source projects. Setting up open source real-time communications projects especially is time consuming, heavily time consuming. Like, just, I'm in my head, I'm going, how would I set up Asterisk, for example, or even Janus or Jitsi? There's media port ranges. With SIP, there's UDP, there's TCP, there's TLS. Well, with Janus, with any WebRTC project, you've got TLS to set up as well. You've got to make sure things aren't necessarily hidden behind NATs. You've got different things for different OSs. It's actually really difficult to kind of go, right, let's go and try Asterisk, or let's go and try Janus. It's really difficult. And Docker hasn't necessarily, containerization in general, hasn't really helped solve this problem at all. Because ultimately, it's really quite difficult to get everything into this image that you need to run without a NAT, because inherently Docker wants to run behind a NAT in the first place, unless you do host networking. But then, is that actually giving you what you want? And actually, like, going and changing some files, and it's time consuming and it's difficult. Like, a load of us will look at it and go, it's really easy to set up free PBX, right? But I'm in channels all day long where I can see people struggling because they're new to VoIP, and VoIP is inherently difficult, right? So most people say, just give me a platform I can log into, right? Give me something that I can go and use. And ultimately, what I've been thinking about over the past year or so has been that every single project should have a showcase application, right? And ultimately, we need to make it so easy for people to go and use these applications that they've got no reason not to. When I think about, say, like YouTube DL, which has been in the news a lot recently because of the whole GitHub takedown, projects like that, projects like Node.js, you're just installing it, right? And then you write some code and then you run it, or you run YouTube DL against the URL, and you've got a video at the end of it. These are great projects, and you can see and use them really quickly because there aren't a huge amount of dependencies. Obviously, like with Node.js, for example, you can go and build something that has a load of dependencies, and it's really difficult to, say, install or make a Docker image or whatever. But to just install Node.js is a one-liner thing, right? So we need showcase projects to get people started quickly. Like, if they've gone through all of the effort of actually installing Asterisk, then surely it should be a 5-minute thing to go and actually use it. A lot of the time it's not that simple. So introducing Dana, the stream gatekeeper. And this is a showcase project that I started building for the Asterisk project. I actually started it with a completely different mindset. I had this mindset of, well, we need an SFU front end for Asterisk. Asterisk is a media gateway engine, basically, and it can handle SIP, and it can handle WebRTC, and it can handle the PSTN and everything. But a lot of their cool new features take a lot of setup, right? A lot of coding. Like, it's not just given to you. It's not just 3 lines of config. You have to go and write something. So I started building Dana, the stream gatekeeper for Asterisk, just as an SFU front end. And ultimately, it just turned into this showcase project. So it showcases the SFU, it showcases the ARI. There are the Asterisk RESTful interface. There's projects to create a conference bridge using the ARI. And then there's also example apps for how to use Asterisk's external media API, which is part of the ARI, but not at the same time. And it means we can send audio from Asterisk up to, say, Dialogflow or a speech-to-text engine or whatever. And then we're able to actually get audio back and pipe it back into Asterisk. It's a really exciting API, but it's really quite difficult for people to get going with it, to get started with it. So it really turned into this showcase project. And I guess that's what's kind of led me down this path of trying to think about how open source projects can actually do better. So self-promotion over, let's get back to the problem at hand. And if we take a look and have a look at some of the most well-known real-time communications open source projects, we'll find, like in terms of chat projects, we've got Matrix and Element, we've got Mattermost, we've got Rocket Chat, we've got Zulip. And they're the ones that spring to mind, like straight away. VoIP projects, we've got FreeSwitch, Asterisk, Camelio, OpenSIPs. They're the big 4. And then we've got 2600 Hz's Kazoo. We've got Dractio, we've got PJSIP, as well as other SIP engines like Sophia. And then with WebRTC projects, we've got Janus, we've got MediaSoup, we've got Meduse, we've got Jitsi Meet Video Bridge, Jitsi Meet, Pion, Ant Media, Corrento, Lycode. We've got these amazing projects in real-time communications. But we can't really take a look at all of those. So let's just take a look at the WebRTC projects, right? Which of those WebRTC projects is the most popular today? I mean, it's Jitsi Meet, right? It's got to be Jitsi Meet. But you'll notice it's not Jitsi Video Bridge. Jitsi Video Bridge is the engine that does everything, right? But people don't talk about JVB. They talk about Jitsi Meet. And there's a reason. There's a reason because it's almost a 1-line install. Let's take a quick look at how long it actually takes to install Jitsi Meet. So this is my friend Chris from Crosstalk Solutions, and he's typing in sudo apt-get install Jitsi Meet, and 77%, 80, 90. Oh, right, now we're in the installation guide. And if we stick with this, I'm not going to, then it's just a case of following the guide, right? And it does everything for you. I mean, I've slightly glossed over the fact that you have to bring in the repo from wherever to be able to just do that. But ultimately, I think Chris's video where he takes you through it all is less than 30 minutes long, which is just astonishing. And there's even a blog post that you can follow along if you want to follow along on how to install it on Ubuntu 19 on Vultr, I think. Anyway, so Jitsi Meet. Why is Jitsi Meet so popular other than all of like just that 1-line installation? I mean, that 1-line installation isn't going to scale very well, right? But you can go and show your boss, and you go, this is really cool. And it's something usable. So what does Jitsi Meet actually have? It's got end-to-end encryption, proper end-to-end encryption, screen sharing, mute controls over remote participants. You can share a meeting up to YouTube. You can have like 75 to 100 participants per room, and loads of other features. Like, this is really cool stuff, right? I mean, all of these other projects can do these too, right? Like, Janus can definitely do end-to-end encryption, where it passes the keys for insertable streams all the way through. It doesn't pass the keys. Janus isn't meant to know about those keys, but you get the idea. Like, all of these other projects have the ability to do this stuff. I know, it's shocking. So why does Jitsi get all of this glory? Like, when we're talking about WebRTC projects, why does Jitsi always come up as that application that should work 100% of the time? It's because they have a feature-rich UI and a project deployed 99% with a one-liner. And ultimately, that's all it is. I mean, I don't want to discredit the Jitsi team at all. They've done a fantastic job. But ultimately, Jitsi Meet is the reason why Jitsi Video Bridge is deployed in hundreds/thousands of installs since the pandemic began. It's because of Jitsi Meet, the UI that goes on top of it. I've just been ranting and raving about how great Jitsi Video Bridge, Jitsi Meet is. But ultimately, why is the best of us not competing with Zoom? Here we've got the UK government using Zoom, even though they've been told that it's not necessarily the most secure of platforms. Here's the South African government using Zoom, even though they've been told that it's not the most secure of platforms. Here's the BBC using Zoom for an audience, a virtual audience. You can see here, remarkable. Like, take a look and you can see most people got the memo. Most people got the memo about putting .dot as their name so that their name wasn't put on national TV. But the BBC decided they couldn't be bothered to just blank out those names of people that had forgotten in post-production. It would have taken 2 seconds. This is available on BBC iPlayer, so that's why I haven't gone to the effort of removing their names, because it's already out there. But the BBC, just showing off Zoom's UI. The BBC, right? The British Broadcasting Corporation, who is meant to not show favoritism at all. Like, they're always meant to kind of say, oh, other conferencing services are available, because they're not meant to be seen as advertising a service or a product. But ultimately they are, right? That's all they've been doing since the beginning of the pandemic. This is the Netherlands government using Zoom, rather strangely with all those TVs, but using Zoom. But I don't get it, right? I don't get it. Why would you trust your news briefings and other things to Zoom, right? What if there's a Zoom outage? Oh, ironically, there was. Right, anyway, I'll stop ranting. But so why is this the case? Why is everyone using Zoom and not using a platform that they could run themselves using an open source project, such as Jitsi or Element or Matrix or whatever, right? Quite frankly, it's our fault. It's our fault as project maintainers / developers. Yeah, you heard me. Like, it's our fault. We need to do better. Users are blind. They are absolutely blind and they don't know any better. We need to help them. They don't know how insecure Zoom really is. We know. They don't know what Zoom does to your OS. They don't know that it installs extra crap and like it enables them to restart processes without the Zoom app even being open. But we do, right? We know how much of a virus Zoom is. It's hilarious, right? Zoom is helping the world stay connected through this pandemic that's caused by a virus, and many of us see Zoom as a virus itself. Hilarious / sad all at the same time. Users don't read Ars Technica, right? This got released on the 9th of November, and basically it said that Zoom lied to everyone for months and months and months because they didn't support end-to-end encryption when they said they did. Now, if you don't know how, so Zoom kind of uses WebRTC, kind of doesn't use WebRTC. Like they've got a web UI, and that uses some elements of WebRTC stack, but it doesn't use everything. And then their actual apps don't use WebRTC at all, from what I remember, or maybe parts of it. And ultimately, if you know how WebRTC works, if you've got a peer-to-peer connection between two devices, then that is inherently end-to-end encrypted because the media is going from point A to point B, and it's encrypted by design. As soon as you send your media up to a third party, i.e. a peer in the cloud, then that peer has to decode it and then re-encode it on the way out. It doesn't just pass it all the way through. It has to decode it and encode it. And that's what Zoom are doing. That's what every single SFU was doing. That's what every single MCU was doing until insertable streams came along a couple of months ago. Well, a bit more than that. But ultimately, Zoom didn't make this clear. They just said, oh yeah, we're end-to-end encrypted. And so they lied. They inherently lied to their user base. But users don't read Ars Technica, right? So why do people use Zoom? I mean, I'm gonna moan about the UK government a bit more. But why do they use Zoom? Because it's easy and it works, right? I mean, you can see here, William and Kate are using Zoom to talk to a UK school. Why did they use Zoom for that? Is it because Zoom is inherently in everyone's mind? Is it because everyone already has the Zoom app installed? I can't imagine it's because of like awesome video and audio quality, right? What is the reason? The reason is it's easy and it works. It might offer really shit audio quality compared to what we can actually offer using Opus and everything else. But users don't care about that. Users care about a connection staying up. Users care about being able to hear their loved one on the other end of a phone call, on a video call, right? They don't care about getting HD audio quality. They're also used to talking on the phone. Phone calls typically are not HD audio quality. So what's the underlying message here? I mean, should we take a leaf out of Element and Mattermost books? Make it easy to sign up to a project's cloud platform. I mean, this is really easy to say, but ultimately it's a very, very difficult thing to do. What Matthew and Amadine from the Matrix project and now Element did was essentially built up Matrix, and then they ran matrix.org with a home server, so anyone could go and sign up for a Matrix account and use it. And ultimately, would I have even gone and installed a Matrix home server without using the software first, without using the platform first? No, because I didn't know how it all was meant to work, right? Didn't know what the benefits were. I don't get those benefits just from like reading a bit of text that says, oh, we're end-to-end encrypted, and you can have these fantastic rooms and group chats and federation, and that all sounds amazing. But up until I actually have to spend time building and installing this thing, like, it's just words, right? It's just, oh, that's really cool. like I said, that's really quite difficult because ultimately creating a cloud platform for, say, Asterisk to be a demo, or FreeSwitch or Janus or whatever, it's actually really quite difficult because there are so many, like they're built so that they can be customized so much that actually showing what you can do in a trial, or even having a proper cloud platform, is inherently difficult. So where that's not possible, we need to follow Jitsy's example. I mean, again, like Jitsi has meet.jit.c, and so you can actually go and use Jitsi. So, I mean, ultimately, Jitsi Meet is doing a fantastic job. 8x8 are doing a fantastic job. But we could, if we can't do the cloud stuff, then we could just follow Jitsi's example with this super, super easy installation that maybe isn't hugely customizable like out of the gate, but at least allows us to kind of have this conferencing experiencing that Jitsi gives us, for example. I mean, and if that's still not possible because, you know, it's complicated, then at least we should be making SDKs modern and fully functional. I'm looking at the Asterisk project here and saying, well, what have we got that's actually modern and usable for talking to, say, the ARI? And there's a module called Node ARI, and that's from the Asterisk project. But I mean, it's got a big warning at the beginning of it saying that Swagger is out of date, but you can't update Swagger because the actual project uses an out-of-date version of Swagger. It doesn't follow, it has promises, but it doesn't follow modern conventions. Like all the demos aren't modern, they aren't following ES6. And these are all just mental blockers that developers will go through in terms of, right, how do I get started with this project? And they look at some documentation, it's out of date. Should the Asterisk project, as Asterisk maintainers, be handling that? Should Sangoma be handling that? Should people from the community be handling that? I don't know. It's a complicated answer, right? But ultimately, maybe I should be spending more time on that. But then I've been building this SFU showcase. There's only so much time in the day. You've got to look at everything to make everything as easy for end users / developers / whoever to evaluate your project and get started with it ASAP so that they can actually make a decision. Because if it takes too long, they're just going to go, we'll just go use this other thing that we can just sign up for and pay $10 a month for per user forever, you know? But that's easy, right? Pulling out a wallet is easy. Actually writing some config and code, it's pretty difficult. I mean, we can complain about Zoom. We can complain about MS Teams. We can complain about Slack. We can complain about Twilio. We can complain about RingCentral. We can complain about Skype. WebEx, yep. Any of the cloud service providers. We, as open source project maintainers or users, can complain about them till we're blue in the face. But ultimately, they're the ones that have actually taken on all of this growth during the pandemic. And for the most part, done it really well. I mean, so ultimately, if we want a slice of the pie, if we want a slice of the glory or user base, then we need to build a better tomorrow. We need to get started. We need to put our efforts where our mouths are and actually build for a better tomorrow. Build something that shows how shit Zoom really is, right? Because that's how people will migrate. That's how people will move. They'll go, well, this app that isn't Zoom, that's using, they don't care that it's using, say, Janus underneath it. They don't care. But they care about opening up an app and being able to call their loved one or a meeting for their work or whatever, and for it to actually work 99% of the time. That's what Zoom does. It's what Zoom does really well. So build something that shows why your project is the new hotness. That's me done. Actually, no, I'm not quite done. I mean, I've been really unfair to some people / projects that I class as dear friends, and I want to make that right now. I mean, the trouble with RTC projects in particular, they are incredibly difficult to show off to potential users. Like I said, actually setting up Asterisk, actually setting up Janus, actually setting up all of these things so it actually works is relatively easy for people like me. I still have a hard time with some of it, but it's relatively easy for someone like me because that's what I do day in, day out. But an IT manager or a dev team coming into something fairly new, we need to think of them. And it's really difficult to do that. I get it. Like I think back to when I first started getting into VoIP and real-time communications. I was a web developer who understood HTTP and JavaScript and CSS and writing some JavaScript to show off, like, click here and we can show and hide stuff, right? I was trained as a PHP developer and kind of went into Node and then got put onto a VoIP project at work. So that's how I got started. And now I look back and go, oh, it was really difficult. What was really difficult? Well, I don't know, because time's moved on and my knowledge has grown. So it's really difficult to put your head into someone else's shoes who is only just starting. But we need to do that. Installations are not simple. And just creating a cloud service for every single project creating this cloud service isn't necessarily gonna, happen. I mean, CPASs equals a GDPR nightmare, and CPASs equals requires lots of money to make it run. I mean, I've no idea how much 8x8 spend on making Jitsi Meet run all over the world in the most low latency way possible and supporting everyone during, like, lockdown V1. I've no idea how much they spent. I have an idea how much how many instances they brought up in certain places after talking to a couple of people, but ultimately that all costs money, and most open source projects don't have money. Wouldn't it be awesome to have a combined marketing budget for all of these open source projects and legal protections to take care of, like, what should we do about GDPR? I don't even know, like, the ins and outs of GDPR, and I'm in the EU. Actually, no, I'm not anymore. Anyway, so wouldn't it be awesome if there was this joint organization with a sole purpose of promoting open source real-time communication projects? That sounds kind of like an RTC cooperative to me, or maybe an RTC foundation. Yeah. I mean, I told you it would be thought-provoking, didn't I? I'm hoping you'll all go away and have a think about an RTC cooperative, or maybe even an RTC foundation that groups everything together, gives us all combined marketing power to take the fight to people like Zoom, who have millions and millions and millions of dollars to just spend because their share price skyrocketed throughout lockdown, throughout this pandemic. Open source projects don't have share prices. Open source projects don't usually have huge amounts of money going into them unless they've got a commercial sponsor, like Sangoma for the Asterisk project or SignalWire for FreeSwitch. But even then, they're not plowing millions and millions and millions of dollars into open source, right? Okay, now I'm done. Thank you very much. I'm Dan_Jenkins on Twitter. I'm dan@nimble.ae.pe on email. And I'd love to hear your views. Yeah, thank you very much.